right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Great Starts Dog Training Podcast. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about some safety tips for traveling with your furry friend in your vehicle. Um, there's a lot of different things you can consider, and one of the most important ones that we're just going to throw right out there is do not leave your dog in the back of your truck bed without any sort of contraption to keep it strapped in so it cannot jump out of your truck bed. Now, I own a truck and I don't really even put my dogs in the truck bed because I'm too worried that, heaven forbid something happens, they're being flown from the truck bed or something's squishing them or they jump out because they see something and it scares them because let's face it, dogs are animals. Something freaks them out. They're going to either fight, run, hide, you name it. I don't want to take that risk. So, myself, I don't keep my dogs in the truck bed. And if you do, please at least have something containing them within. Kind of hot and heavy right out the bat, but that is something I am incredibly passionate about because that is something I see way too often. Now, when you're traveling with your dog in the vehicle, saying it's not a truck, there are a couple other things to consider. How far are you traveling? What is the destination you're going to? What is the environment that you're driving in? How old is your vehicle? What is your driving history? All those fun things to consider that we need to reflect on so that we can ensure, just like our human passengers and ourselves, we keep our animals safe in the vehicle as well. What I like to do with my dogs is I have them in harnesses, very well fitted. They're secure, safe. And then I have seat latch attachment leash kind of thing. It's not the kind that clips into the seat buckle because your dog can accidentally unclip themselves, and the weight of your dog moving around and all that every time you clip them on can actually damage your seatbelt buckle. So that in and of itself could increase your risk of having a higher fault. So I've found these ones on Amazon. This is not a sponsorship in any way, shape, or form, but they're from Mighty Paws, and they are very, very strong, high weight test, nylon material. They have a very sturdy, secure carabiner on the end, and then on the side that connects to the seat, it latches onto the child seat restraint. So most vehicles either have, some on the middle of the seat or some on the top of the seat, and it is a welded piece to the frame of your vehicle, the seat of your vehicle, that people are normally instructed to latch their child's car seat into because that provides the most secure connection. The car seat is not going to go flying anywhere, which means their kid is not going to go flying anywhere. And if you're like me and your dogs right now are essentially your children, I know some people hate when somebody says that, but let's face it, we don't all have human children out there. So I secure them with this child latch through the Mighty Paws leash, and it is an incredibly secure connection. Like, I am not worried about anything happening to my dogs in the event that something happens. Um, and keep in mind, it will also depend on the size of your dog. Like, how big is your dog? How little is your dog? What's the weight of your dog? You got to take all those things into consideration too. And this is just the option that I choose to do, and what I do suggest to other individuals because it's safe. And for most people who aren't able to fit one of the next options that we're going to talk about in their vehicle, it's a very good choice. And I've been traveling with my dogs for as long as I've had them, and I've never had an issue. Granted, we've never gotten in a car accident with them in the vehicle, thank goodness. Um, but in the event that it does happen, I am very, very confident in their safety. So that is one thing to consider with vehicle safety for your animals. Having that nice, well fitted harness, safe, secure harness, and then the attachment that clips in to the seat belt or the car seat latch. Either it's in the middle of your seat or they have some at the top of your seat, and it's a metal piece. It's welded on. Your dog's not going to go anywhere as long as you ensure that, the weight of your dog complies with the weight threshold and the strength of the latch that you are using. So still do your research on it. That's absolutely, do not just take this for what it is. Do your research. And then we're gonna move into the next topic here, and that is utilizing a kennel. Now, some people have really mixed feelings when putting their dogs into a kennel. Some of them out there don't even kennel train their dog in their house to begin with, and that's a whole other can of worms that we're not going to go into. But I will say you absolutely need to kennel train your dog, even if your dog does not spend a whole bunch of time at all in the kennel. It's a very important, necessary skill that they need to be able to have and endure in the event of an emergency. But if your dog and if your space allows it, there are several good crash tested kennels out there that you should consider using. Now, granted, these are much more expensive than the other option, but they are crash tested. They are going to keep your dog safe in the event of an absolutely horrible accident. Your dog is going to have that additional level of security and protection than just your car. Now, sometimes this doesn't work for people just because of the economical factor of the kennels being really expensive, and other times it's because their vehicle just does not fit the size kennel that they would need with their dog. And that's a very true problem. I mean, if you got a vehicle that, say, you got a Subaru Outback, and you are putting a kennel in the back, or you're folding the seat down and you're putting the kennel right there, there is a decent amount of space where you can fit one or two good crash tested kennels, um, and still have some room to work, some room to put things. Now, if you're driving a little sedan, you might be able to fit one kennel in there. Again, it depends on the size of your dog and have a little bit of room, or it could take up the entire back seat of your car. I mean, really, it just depends on your space, your situation. But having a kennel is technically the safest way for your dog to travel in your vehicle. It just is, because they can't roam around, they can't jump around on you, they can't accidentally jump out of a window, whatever the situation might be. Your dog is in a confined, safe enclosure that they're comfortable with, that if you get in a crash, if, something happens, your dog needs to be removed from the vehicle very quickly. They're contained. They're in a safe spot. They're in a place where no harm is really going to come to them. And, you know, it's one less thing you're going to have to worry about. So there's a couple of brands that I particularly like, that I've seen, that I have been contemplating getting, trying out, seeing how they'll work, but I'm not sure space wise how I would make it work in my vehicles just because of the number of dogs that I have. But of the research that I've done, I really have come to like the Rufflin kennels. And Rufflin kennels have a lot of different options, a lot of customization you can do. And there are some concerns about Rufflins not being crash tested per se because of the material of the door on some of the options you can get. But there is an upgrade that you can do to get a metal door instead of the one that they typically come with, and that provides it, the crash rating. But even without that door, it is still an incredibly safe kennel. It has latches on the top that you can anchor down into your vehicle, so that kennel is not going anywhere, that your dog is not going anywhere, and it's just a really, really safe solution. Another brand is Gunner Kennels. Those are a really popular hunting dog brand, because they are secure, they're safe. Those are also crash tested, and similar to the Rufflins, they are relatively expensive, and they also are a little bit bulkier than the Rufflins, but they're still a very good option, to keep your dog safe when you're in the vehicle, with whatever you're doing. And there's a whole bunch of get ups you can do with your car too. You can completely deck out your car with accessories, and, it's important when your dogs are in the kennel that they still have airflow. So you got to have fans in there, make sure you're able to get to them in the event of an emergency, and just you're able to still function with these kennels and everything in your car, because they will take up space. And, we're not going to dance over that fact. But the most important part is that we're keeping our dogs safe. Um, so those two are probably my top two of the kennels that I've been looking at. There's another one called the Lucky Dog brand, which looks relatively comparable to the Gunner kennels. But I'd say between the two, if you're not looking to completely customize and mold a kennel to your back end, like I've seen some manufacturers will do, the Ruffland and the Gunner kennels are a pretty good place to start and do your research. And it's very important that you measure your dogs appropriately so that you don't just go off the estimated size, because these kennels are expensive. And if you are buying and, selling to get another one, it doesn't quite fit like you thought it would, like, just do that old measure twice, cut once kind of thing. We want to make sure it's going to be the right fit, right time, right everything. We don't want to put our dogs in risk of, being uncomfortable or just too crammed, creating any anxiety. And then you also don't want it to be too big to where now you can't, functionally use your vehicle safely, and, your dog's being thrown around too much. So very important things to consider. So those are, as far as traveling with your dogs, those are two of my probably biggest tips, is just either utilizing a very well fitted, secure harness, latching your dog into the child seat, welded on latch points in your vehicle, or using a kennel. Yeah, I like the Ruffland, or there's the Gunners that I think are really good too, but those are definitely a more expensive option. It just kind of depends on your situation, what you're looking for, and what will work for you in keeping your dog safe. Outside of the means of keeping your dog safe in the vehicle, there's, of course, just your common sense of not leaving your dog in the vehicle on a hot day. People, it happens more than you think. It's ridiculous how much it happens at this point. Do not leave your dog in the car on a hot day, or even on a really cold day. Sure, they can handle the cold a little bit better, but just don't do it. Like, first off, if your dog is not allowed to go into the store, and your dog is not a trained service dog, a legitimate service dog, not just throwing a vest on it saying it is a service dog and claiming that, don't bring your dog. Just don't bring them. Keep them at home. If your dog destroys your home when you're gone, or they make a mess everywhere, guess what? That's the perfect opportunity to now kennel train your dog. Goes back to what I said in the beginning. You gotta kennel train your dog. You're not being mean. You're not tormenting them. If you introduce the kennel in the right way, or even if your dog has had a bad experience in the kennel in the past, rehabilitating them to the kennel is absolutely something that you can achieve. And it's something that will it will be better off for your dog in the long run, because now you're not running the risk of either harming your dog due to excessive heat, which, if you leave your dog unattended and it's a not great environment outside, you can actually be criminally responsible for that. And if you can't leave your dog at home because they destroy things, or they pee everywhere, or, they don't get along, whatever it might be, like, you feel like you have to supervise at all times, kennel train your dog. Get him in the kennel, get him used to it, put it in a spot where, it's going to be nice and quiet and they're not going to feel super stressed. Get a camera. Get a camera, set it up at your kennel. That's what I do with my own dogs. If I am leaving somewhere, they are not coming with me, I know that they're safe. I can check in on them whenever I need to. I mean, today's technology, you have cameras that you connect to the Wi-Fi and you're set. Like, you can check on them at all times. Like, you can even have some where you can throw a treat out at them if you leave them out, or you can talk to them through the camera. You can see everything that they're doing. You can be alerted to things going on. The point is, if your dog can't go in with you and you're planning a whole day of shopping, or whatever it might be, just don't bring the dog. Leave the dog at home. Kennel train him. Leave him at home. Now, if you are going to a place where you can't take your dog, great. Have a safe way for them to travel in your vehicle. Take them into the stores that they are allowed to go into. If your dog is a legitimate service dog, I'm preaching to the choir here. You already know this. If you're not, and you just don't want to bring your dog, or you don't want to leave your dog at home and you don't want to leave him in the car, just just stay with them, kennel train them, leave them at home, have someone stay in the car with them. Don't bring them into the stores that they shouldn't, because that just causes a whole bunch of other issues. And quite honestly, you're making legitimate individuals who need those service dogs have a much harder time living, um, because your dog is not a trained service dog, and people can tell. You might not think they can, but you can. 9 times out of 10, I go out and I see a dog that's got a little harness on, and it is absolutely not behaving or acting at all what a trained, legitimate service dog should be acting like in a public space. It's very obvious. So just don't have someone stay in the car, leave your dog at home, you name it, all that kind of stuff. So, with that, it's a lot to kind of go through, a lot to digest. But this is a topic that is very important because, we travel all the time with our dogs. Me in my personal life, and a lot of people that I know. You travel with your dogs. Have a safe way for that to happen. Do not just throw your dog in the truck bed so that it's jumping over the side almost, and heaven forbid, jumping out. I knew someone growing up who did that, and their dog jumped out on the freaking highway. And it was a miracle that it didn't get hit. And another jumped out of the car window, was in the car, wasn't latched in, jumped out of the car window, almost got hit. Don't know how it didn't get hit. Just be smart, common sense. You think your dog won't do something, think again. They're still animals, guys. We treat them like they're our family. They are the most important things in the world to me. But you got to remember that they are still animals, and we got to have our best judgment going when we're doing things with them. So keep all that in mind. Do your research on a kennel if you're looking to get a kennel. If you want to get that seatbelt latch for your dog, just look at the Mighty Paws. That's the one that I got. I really like. It's been really good for our dogs. Make sure you have a really safe, secure harness that's well fitted to them, and have some safe and fun travels out there on the road with your dog.